Maddie has a passion for delving into human perspective and challenging social norms. She mainly specialises in memoir, crime and speculative fiction. Her poetry and prose often have a confessional spirit and consistently experiment with imagery to explore themes of love, trauma and female empowerment. When Madison isn't writing, she can be found solo travelling or dabbling in alcoholic ink artworks. She plans to work in editing upon graduating, and you can read her first published work in issue 9 of Glass magazine, which is just over in the corner. Follow her writing journey at Words with Bliss. That's a full stop between each word on Instagram. Please welcome Maddie.
Hi everyone, I'm Maddie. This is my first little travel memoir piece that I've written. It's called Expired Friendships. Every time my mum has her girlfriends round, I always get asked the same question: do you have a boyfriend yet? My mother would intercept the conversation saying I am too independent or too picky, that my standards were so high that it was hard to meet someone who fit the criteria. She'd then go to explain my type, the blonde, muscular guys that almost always end up being fuckboys. Then the girlfriends would explain how their daughters have boyfriends and that I should lower my standards to get one. The truth is, I would rather scroll through lists of mutual friends on Facebook to find a best friend than date someone I had no connection with. You see, in high school, my friends were mostly the transient kind. Colleagues to get blind drunk with after a 12-hour hell of a shift. School friends who existed entirely on campus and dispersed shortly after schoolies. And friends of friends who I saw at parties and insisted on catching up when sober but never did. Social media made it hard to notice our friendships were expiring. We were, after all, still liking each other's Instagram photos, replying to Snapchat stories, and knew what was happening in each other's lives. But we met up less and less. Interactions became a formality, filled with, "How are you?" and "What have you been up to?" And the replies became sanitized. Hence, I did what any lonely millennial would do after a year of an intense, emotional and dramatic year of high school. Take a gap year and travel Europe for 6 months. I had to find a distraction, validation. I needed to find my people. I joined the Facebook groups for my Kentucky tours for the chance to connect with someone before the tour began. The group felt like Tinder, swiping through their profiles, making the call based entirely on their photos and a brief bio. The bios were written with casual boldness, no one wanting to admit the vulnerability of being lonely. So the subtext of nearly every profile was, "I have friends, just not here." I messaged a 19-year-old girl called Millie from Melbourne, and we ended up meeting up on the rooftop of our Athens hotel. In the beginning, it was like first date vibes, awkward pleasantries, brief hug, and the reasoning behind the spontaneous European trip. Though the conversation quickly accelerated into lifelong friend territory. On my last tour, my roommate and me planned to have a night off partying to watch Netflix, she said. And of course, as we walked past everyone's room to get chocolate from the vending machine, our friends caught us. They grabbed our shoes and pushed us back onto the bus to the clubs. We didn't get home until 4 a.m. "So, that is how you got the classic Kentucky cup, huh?" I asked. "That and hooking up with the boys on tour," she said, bursting into an obnoxiously loud and iconic laugh. Her laugh attracted the attention of a group of boys standing at the bar. There were 7 of them, and we quickly realised that they were on the tour too. "Are you friends from back home?" asked one of the boys, who to me looked like a shrill Zac Efron. "No, we just met," I said, "but the cheap daiquiris definitely make it feel like otherwise." We ended up christening the first night of our tour by ditching dinner and stealing a trolley from the supermarket, filling it with booze. With no food in our bellies, I fell off a pool deck chair and Millie puked in the shower. Marina, the Brazilian goddess we quickly adopted after seeing Amy Winehouse's Valerie, had to play doctor, feeding us gyros and forcing water down our throats. I like to joke that in Europe you meet friends by fucking them first. It wasn't something I did intentionally, it just kind of happened. Millie, Marina, and me all had our chance with a group of 21-year-old boys from Melbourne. Shorter Zac Efron, otherwise known as Jordan, was my first fling. He had a habit of day drinking, which left him either being an absolute flirt or to the point of falling down the stairs. There was no in between. We hooked up a handful of times, but he soon became preoccupied with American girls. At first, there were numerous 3 a.m. rants to Millie and Marina and speeches of strong, independent woman needs no man on Paradise Beach in Mykonos. But I guess the saying is true. To get over a man, you get under a new one. When I first met Jordan's friend Brad, there was no hint of attraction, and he was in a strict friend zone. We would spend our days riding ATVs around the island or teasing Marina's boy on how whipped he was for her. We were so comfortable that I often had my head resting on his shoulder as we slept on the barge between islands. It wasn't until our third last night together that I had an inkling of desire. He was dancing on an elevated platform, not a care in the world, covered head to toe in glow sticks. He moved with confidence, and as the night began to close, he walked me back to our hotel, fingers intertwined. To our dismay and luck, my queen bed shared with Millie had 4 occupants. So I went back to his. I believe it was easier or quicker to find intimacy by the literal exposure of myself during sex. The risk of exposure and of pain was limited when you existed primarily on holiday. I imagine that was why it became easier to find close friendships while traveling. The boundaries between friendship and sex became blurred. In the past, I often friend-zoned the guys who were interested in me. If I'm honest with myself, I haven't been ready for anything serious and not ready for anything not serious. It was the in-between space I wanted. The exclusivity of warmth and support, undeniable loyalty. What I wanted without realizing was friendship. Brad and Jordan made me feel a part of a group that I wished to be a part of for so long. It took me leaving everything behind in Brisbane to find out there wasn't something quite right about those friendships. They weren't interested in partying or committed to organising catch-ups and having lengthy, in-depth conversations, but with my Greek tour friends, I was allowed to live youthfully. On my last day in Greece, I held Millie's hand as she got a tattoo of a euro on her foot. 3 months later, I got the same tattoo on my ankle. We will always be connected despite the physical distance between us. When I arrived home from Europe on Christmas Eve, I spent 2 nights in my own bed and flew straight to Melbourne to see my Greek tour friends. Millie picked both Marina and me up from the airport, and we met the boys of the New Year's Eve festival the next day. So, I'd like to tell my mum and her girlfriends that I don't have a boyfriend because I'm so content without one. All I need are my friends who would fly across states and oceans to see me. Thank you.